coming, the sun's zooming in, meltdown expected, the wheat is good there, engines stop running, but I have no fear, 'cause London is drowning. I live by the river.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the By the Minute Arsenal podcast, the second pod of the season. I know they're coming at you very quickly at the moment, but after this one, we'll be back onto the weekly Monday routine. Delighted to say that I am Matt H, and I have Pete back with me again. Hello, Pete.
Hello, Matt, and welcome to a reasonably happy Monday.
Reasonably happy Monday. We should certainly call it that. Matt V is not with us today. He's on his holidays. It was very good of him to join us on Saturday morning. Really, that was jolly decent of him. Hopefully, we'll see him next week. So you've just got the two of us for today. But the exciting news is he has submitted a prediction for the first league game of the season, but we'll come to that later on. So the plan today is to have a little bit of the prediction of the Leicester game, but really have a little chat about what we think might happen this season. But before that, I think it's worth having a little note about the events at Wembley yesterday. Arsenal played Chelsea in the Community Shield and won. I mean, they won on penalties after 90 minutes, but let's not get too excited about the result, although beating Chelsea is always fun, and there's some hilarious penalties to discuss. I'm sure we'll cover all that kind of stuff, but we'll just have a quick review from the Arsenal perspective, see if there's anything that we thought was of particular interest in terms of any player performances, anything really that we would like to bring out. So, Pete, whatever you want, is there anything you'd like to start with?
I saw the whole thing and I enjoyed it. I found myself, although being of the opinion that it is just a meaningless pre-season friendly, particularly when we were a goal down, thinking I'd really rather not lose this, or not during normal time anyway. I really didn't care about the penalty shootout, so I was very glad to see when we got ourselves back on terms. I'm very pleased with that, particularly with the circumstances under which it came about, which were quite amusing to say the least. Partly because Pedro had been sent off for a challenge that actually did deserve sending off, but it was nice that Chelsea would have something else to moan about again, playing us at Wembley and having a play that they didn't think deserved it.
Yeah, I mean, the whole Chelsea side of things was interesting yesterday. Not that that's really within our remit particularly, but just as a note, I hadn't really realised that. And reading a couple of reports today, that there's this idea of a bit of disharmony in the camp, that Conte is not very happy that he hasn't been spending a bit more money, that and perhaps completely unrelated to this, not really relevant, but I happened to see just on the way home this evening that Roman Abramovich is getting a divorce, which I don't imagine has any particular bearing on the situation, but I don't know, maybe that means he has to watch the pennies more. I don't know what the reason might be, but it was interesting to compare an Arsenal team which seemed... settled might not be the right word, but seemed fairly confident and happy and put in a pretty decent performance. Although it does say something that when the Pedro sending off happened, I was momentarily distracted, looked up, saw Xhaka by the referee on a red card, and just assumed Xhaka had been sent off because that was sort of my default setting, and it took a second or two for me to think, oh no, hang on, it's gone the other way completely. But yes, sorry, go on.
Xhaka behaved himself very well, and I think he's worth mentioning because he was made man of the match. And although at the time that he was made man of the match, I did think, was he? I then, on thinking back, realised that he actually was. It was a very good performance, and particularly in terms of just keeping his cool. And we saw a lot last season, him losing it and having some sort of strange disciplinary problems, which weren't all his fault, but actually he did control that game, and he controlled himself. And even when Pedro was being sent off, he was the one helping Pedro, who had injured himself at the same time. And it's kind of nice to see a Xhaka that maybe has got a cooler head on him, and who could maybe get into a season and be what we thought he could be last season, and sort of and only really started to perform properly towards the end of.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit unfair of me to just make that assumption because I guess I was distracted momentarily because I think all the points you've made, and how that doesn't seem to be quite the problem it was, and how he's settled down. And of course, as you say, man of the match, and let's jump straight to the goal, the free kick from that incident that then led to the goal, and a great finish by Kolasinac, which that's the way I'm going to attempt to pronounce it from now on, while I still get used to it. Great to see. I mean, I know it wasn't the plan for him to come on after Per got his nasty little injury, but he seemed to be one of the players that did well, and that was a great finish for the goal.
It certainly was. He's already had a couple of assists in pre-season, and he as I said the other day, that he does seem to be an absolutely excellent addition to the squad, and a bit of a beast to boot. So he really does some great work going forward, and at the same time also looks like he's going to flatten quite a few people during the course of the season. I
think I don't know if it was here or where someone else, where I read it somewhere else or heard it somewhere else, but he was described as a unit, and I think that's the ideal word for him. I mean, it sounds like a bit of a simplification. We're not simplifying his game to just that, but there is a bigger picture, isn't there, about Arsenal's supposedly kind of soft belly, for want of a better word. And there was the incident at the cup final with Holding and Mertesacker ganging up, as it were, on Costa, and then we've got this our new signing who looks pretty tasty. And we've got some other players who it seems aren't quite who are willing to look after each other, shall we say. So everything so far at this ridiculously early stage of the season does look promising as far as that's concerned. Overall, though, you saw the game. My impression was, as far as you can tell in these kind of things, a pretty decent all-round performance.
I think we were better in the first half than the second, weirdly enough, although that's when we scored in the second but not in the first. But I thought we were very good in the first half, everyone performed reasonably well. I think in the first half we had a standard problem of playing really well but not taking chances. But we're going to have to get used to that as ever. I'm still yet to be convinced by Lacazette, and I mean, there was a brilliant move when he hit the post, but he hit the post, and until he starts putting those in, preferably on a regular basis, I'm going to be still on the fence about
reserving judgment. Yeah, which I think is fair enough. It doesn't seem players get the time they would like these days. But it will be interesting to see how he plays, obviously, this week and going forward in the Premier League. He's scored a couple in pre-season, hasn't he? But they've been of the relatively straightforward variety. So we'll see how that goes. Any other players? There may not be an answer to this, but any other players that you'd like to pick up? I mean, anyone else is going to be an old player in the sense of someone who was already at Arsenal, because those were our two signings which we've discussed. Obviously, we didn't have any Sanchez, we didn't have any Ozil. Don't think there's anything to worry about there. I think that's sort of injuries and only just back from breaks and things, isn't it? Anything else that was worth noting in terms of any player performances?
I think, well, other than Oxlade-Chamberlain continues to not perform to his to the standard we would like to see from him, but in a position he quite plainly doesn't like, of left wing back. But I can't see him being put anywhere else. So there you go. I think it was just a good team performance, and really those were the two standout players, Xhaka and Kolasinac, who, as you say, only actually came on to some extent to replace a rather badly gashed Mertesacker. Yeah, I assumed that was just a nosebleed at first, but quite plainly
No, I thought he'd. It
was a nasty gash.
It was. I thought he'd had one just at the top of the nose, which I don't know why I'm tapping at it because no one could see me doing this. But and of course, right just at the top there is where you can imagine claret being spilt to go for a London expression. But yeah, it was his modelling career. I fear may have been affected adversely by that rather nasty and maybe slightly haphazard looking stitching job. It didn't look the neatest job, but maybe that was just the nature of the cut.
It was a bit Dr. Frankenstein, wasn't it?
Well, there we are. Well, that'd be a disappointment for him, but there we go. So,
just another player to mention.
Oh, go on.
Just because I like mentioning him, Rob Holding.
Rob Holding. Well, of course.
Classy. Looked comfortable, although he did have one bad moment, I think. But he was even getting forward. He was. I think it's good. I like the fact that Wenger started the same back three as the FA Cup final, and I think it was good he started Holding as well. And just mention Rob again.
Just mention him.
Rob played and certainly didn't look out of place.
Well, I did the season preview for Arsenal for the By the Minute website, and one of the things it was suggested we addressed was a player to look out for. So I picked Rob Holding, which it seems a rather obvious one. But then a couple of years ago I picked El Neni, and then he never played, or barely played. I picked Holding because he's only played 9 league games last season, plus a smattering of cup stuff. So whilst to us at least he's become dare I say it, a bit of a cult figure. I think it would be great to see him just carry, and I don't doubt that he will, to be honest, but it'd be great to see if he can actually carry that on as a regular in the team. So it'd be interesting to see that. We've done quite a lot on this, so I wasn't going to do too much longer, but it's worth mentioning the penalties. Arsenal, I think the commentator said, have won 7 out of the last 8, will be 8 out of 9 now. Although Chelsea made it rather easy with some somewhat odd check. Matt's not here with us, but me and him have chatted before on here about Czech's penalty ability, or perhaps a perceived lack of ability in penalties. He didn't have to do much yesterday.
He didn't. Anything that was on target he didn't save, but there was only one of those, so never mind.
Chelsea are not our brief, so we don't want to get in there, and I really don't want to be stretching it by wondering if there's anything in that terrible penalty performance and who they picked compared to any problems there might be within the club. Very much sort of, if you like, first world problems, I'm sure. But yeah, it was interesting that our players came out and did the job pretty efficiently.
What has been reported that we might be able to put down to Czech is that Czech knew where Courtois always puts his penalties. And so maybe Courtois was trying to put it somewhere else.
Rosette, apparently.
Yeah. There you go.
Well, and to be fair, we wouldn't have been expecting that. So
maybe that was something to do with Petr Cech, but I wouldn't say much to do with his goalkeeping abilities or penalty saving abilities.
No, but worth noting. The only other point we must move on. But the only other point I had, and I don't really know why I wrote this down, was just Theo's hair. It was nice to see Theo Walcott with the very smart, sort of short back and sides. I don't know if anyone else noticed this, or maybe it was just me.
No, I think it's beautiful myself. I won't say any more than that.
No. Well, let's move on. All right. So another bit of silverware to put in the trophy cabinet. All right, might be perhaps towards the back, perhaps not front and centre, but a pretty decent pre-season now.
Let's just forget it.
It's there. Let's forget it, and let's move on, because the link I was trying to make there is into the real season. So. Again, I don't think we want anything detailed, and I think I'm going to assume that you, like me, would love Arsenal to win everything. So I don't think it's a case of what we would like to happen, but I think if we can try and be a bit realistic, and we'll start with the league first, just in a line or two really, and to put it into context, I've seen a couple of season previews which are not club specific, but sort of about the Premier League, which have really put Arsenal down in sort of 5th and 6th position. Whether that's a mixture of not thinking Arsenal have improved massively from last year, or changes and improvements being made at other clubs, I don't know. That's not really for us to worry about, although it's something for us to be having in our mind when we have this discussion. So we're not going to keep a record of this, so you say whatever you like, but where do you think it's realistic for Arsenal to be next May? Will it be the top 4? Will they struggle to get there? Will they get there with ease? Will they be actually challenging for the title? Any sort of thoughts in terms of where they might be?
I think it would be foolish to think that we won't be top 4. I think we will be top 4. And I think that the only reason I think we won't be distracted by Europe, because we will be playing reserve sides, and that to some extent we'll be able to concentrate on the league, and I think we're easily good enough to finish top 4. This might be start of a new season optimism as you always get, but I don't care. I just think that that the likelihood is Arsenal will finish top 4, as we have for 21 of the past 22 years. So why would we believe otherwise? I think the only reason to think potentially this is if the Thursday Sunday thing causes us any problem, but I really don't think it will. And I think other teams that are currently being touted as being the best thing since sliced bread will struggle this season, particularly being in Chelsea. I think will struggle being in the Champions League. I think Tottenham will struggle being in the Champions League. I think Liverpool will struggle being in the Champions League. So I really don't see Arsenal having any problem making top 4. Whether we mount a title challenge, I'm not so sure about. But
All right. No, that sounds good. That sounds good. Top four, I like that. The Thursday Sunday thing's very interesting. I was thinking about this morning, weirdly, and I had a moment, that's not quite road to Damascus, but it's a moment when I thought, well, hang on, our kickoff times are often all over the shop. So I'm hoping that in itself, just the kickoff times won't make a massive difference to the club. Obviously, who we play in that competition, both in terms of the players we play and the geography, as in where the places we have to travel to, will be interesting. But there's only going to be 3 of those away games, isn't there, in the group stage at least? So there might be more further down the line, but let's worry about the group bit first. So when you put it like that, it's not a massive problem. I did the pre-season preview for By the Minute, as I noted, and one of the things we were asked was realistic, and I went for 3rd place, using some of the same logic you have, and I think some of the same optimism as well. Because I think there is those teams. I mean, we're in the Champions League, obviously have a bit more pressure. I think I'm loath to criticise Spurs, and it's probably the wrong place to say this, but I think they will have problems using Wembley as their home ground for 38 league matches. I think that will be an issue for them. Sorry, for 19 of the league matches, or not playing at home, as it were, for the whole season. I don't necessarily see United kicking on much from where they were last time, although their priorities were perhaps slightly different. I see it as being a bit of a scrap, but yeah, I'm hoping that experience that we have, and if this is assuming we keep roughly the same players that we have, I mean, we don't need to go through the names again, but we know what the possibilities are there. Assuming the best sort of outcomes, I think 3rd place is what I went for, and I'm sticking to that a couple of days later, and I'll stick with it until we lose 3 on the spin in September or whatever it is. So that's my take on that.
Yeah. I don't disagree. I think I would probably suggest I'm a little bit more optimistic in terms of pushing a little bit more for 2nd or 1st even. I think just slightly more.
Okay.
But I basically agree with what you're saying, that 3rd seems a very reasonable target.
Okay, great. And so just as a little appendix, if you like, to that, because we've kept it very broad there, because obviously loads can happen between now and the end of the season, and most of which is out of our control, of course, to do with other clubs. But cup competitions, do you foresee? We talked a little bit about this last season, but a real go at the Europa League, the FA Cup, and the League Cup? Will there be some? How seriously are we going to take these 3 competitions?
I hope we don't take the Europa League very seriously. I hope we just have fun, basically, and just look, it's fun, it's different, let's just enjoy it, enjoy the games, just don't feel this huge amount of pressure to win it. I certainly don't want to be in a situation at the end of the season like Manchester United were, where they're saying, right, we're going to abandon the league to win the Europa League just to get into the Champions League. It's just I don't want to be in that situation. I thought it was horrible hearing Mourinho say that. I don't want to be prioritising the Europa League. It's just more than anything. It's mainly an annoyance, but let's just make it fun and just have a go, but have a crack, but do it with some younger or fringy players, and so that we can concentrate on taking the league seriously on the Sunday, which, as you say, might be an advantage, that we get a regular day to play at least, whereas before we've been swapped about all over the place. They can't do that as much to us.
Can't do it for those 6 weeks, can they? Which is some. Well, we say that now. Who knows what the TV people will end up doing? I
can't see us changing our approach to the League Cup, whatever it's called this year. We'll just do our usual thing in that. Hopefully we'll continue to take the FA Cup seriously, being as it's our competition, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on the League Cup. I agree with you on the FA Cup. I completely understand your point on the Europa League in terms of having fun with it, and I probably wouldn't disagree with that. But I do wonder, realistically, if Wenger, whilst not going down the Mourinho route, might see it as a trophy option. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, the proof of the pudding will be in the team selections, to mix some metaphors. So it'll be interesting to see what they actually come up with in terms of the teams in the group stage, and then if we're successful in the group stage, to see what happens in the knockout bit. So yeah, I'd like us to give all of them a go to some extent, but yeah, League Cup, same kind of. we get criticised for not taking the League Cup seriously, but we have had a decent record in it over the years. FA Cup, I think that's undoubted. We've seen the success in that, and Europa League. I think I said in the preview it would be nice if we're going to be in it. I think it would be nice to make a good stab at it, but probably not at the expense of. Let's not go too stupid with it. Which I think is sort of what you're getting at as well. Let's not throw everything at it. We may find ourselves in this is a horrible thought, the Mourinho position. I don't even imagine what that might be. And so perhaps in February, March, April or something, we may need to reassess. But let's not worry about that now. We're talking about what we think we'd like to happen. So, okay. Well, we'll leave that bit there then. One thing I need to do is I slighted Jens Lehmann last week, which, quite frankly, is a frightening prospect. He's not the goalkeeping coach, I think I said. He's an assistant coach. So he has a wider remit. So I just wanted to make that clear in case Jens does happen to listen and comes to hunt me down, because I don't need that.
He probably lives not far from you.
I don't. That's not going to make me feel any better. But that's a very interesting point. You've made that now. Well, he doesn't know where I am completely. So, and I've apologised now. So there we go.
But Jens, you are listening.
Yes, you do know. So. Oh dear.
At least you're getting that.
Right. Let's very quickly then, because we've done 20 minutes or so. So let's move on to the last item on the agenda. So we have Leicester this weekend at home, first league game. I think
weekend.
Friday, yes.
I'm sorry, but I think it's outrageous.
Oh,
you talk about a Friday night,
of course, yes.
After the season. I mean, understand Friday night football. Yeah, great, fantastic. Let's do it. But can we not do it on the first day of the season? And can you not make one club do it on the first day of the season, or two clubs? It's just what? That just seems outrageous to me. That's not like a kick-off to a new season, is it? To have two clubs facing each other off a day before everyone else. It's just not on. I'm really annoyed, and I think it's really outrageous to us as fans to expect us to be attending. It's the first, and it has to be the home game, doesn't it? I might have not minded so much if it was away, but just outrageous.
Well, as we've alluded to previously, we are so used to having our games moved to all sorts of Saturday lunchtime, Sunday lunchtime. I mean, Sunday evening I think has been mentioned. I don't know if it's this time or next time as a potential kick-off time, which is just ridiculous. So yeah, I think the first day of the season, all right, these days, to be realistic, it's going to be on the Saturday and the Sunday these days. But Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I think of the 10 Premier League games this weekend, 5 of them are on the telly of one type or another, which of course by definition means they're on it what you might call odd times. I mean, yes, it would be very easy for people of our generation to be bemoaning the miss, the 3 o'clock kickoffs no longer existing, but I don't think we're doing that. I don't think you're doing that. I think you're making the point that this is one step too far.
On the game of the season, it's outrageous.
Okay, well, that said, and I think plenty of people will agree with that. Let's try our new sort of prediction approach, because Leicester game, obviously they are the champions of a couple of years ago, but they're not the same team that they were then. So Pete, let's have a line or two from you on the game, and then let's have your score prediction, please.
Okay, so a line or two on the game. I imagine that it's difficult to actually, to some extent, it's difficult to assess whether it will be our normal sort of outcome, being as it's a Friday night and quite different to usual season kickoffs. But I'm assuming we will probably at least have Sanchez in the squad, if not starting, Ozil back. I'm not sure about Ramsey, but I think I think the performance on Sunday showed that we have good squad set up, and that we should be approaching games like that with constant confidence. But however, we're Arsenal and it's the first game of the season, so prediction wise, because I want to win this prediction competition, I should have to say now, Matt.
No, that's fine.
I am going to go a draw again, as
Okay.
I did, and I would say 2-2.
2-2, okay. So yes, for those who missed it, sorry, go on.
Leicester capable of scoring. Interesting. They've got this. They've got Iheanacho, haven't they now, from City? Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Right. And maybe that'll make a difference. Maybe they'll be rejuvenated. I'm sure they've had a reasonably good pre-season, and I think they could come and give us some problems. And we're Arsenal, and we never win our first home game.
All right. Well, that was plenty of information there. Yeah, I mean, Pete, of course, we should note, won the prediction competition that we had last Sunday for the Charity Shield when he said it would be 2-2. It was 1-1. We decided after 90 minutes, of course, the penalties were immediately after 90 minutes. That doesn't count. That was just a practice. But this is real now, so this is for the honour between the three of us. Matt is not able to be with us, but he has submitted his prediction. He's gone for a 3-1 Arsenal win. I've gone for a 2-0 Arsenal win. On the base, my thinking, such it is, was that I thought we have to get off to a good start, so maybe there's a bit of optimism in this as much as anything else. I think the players will be very keen to. They know the disappointment there was last season. I think if we've got a pretty strong team out, I think we should be winning a home game. But as you were talking there, Pete, and I was thinking, oh yes, it's the first game of the season. Oh yes, it's Leicester, who are not a terrible team by any means, although perhaps I think not quite at the level they were a couple of years ago. The nil is now bothering me, but I'm going to stick with it because I think, there is a chance Leicester could snatch something. But I think we'll win. I'm going to go for 2-0, and that's my prediction. So that's what I'm sticking to. So we'll see how it goes. So it looks like we'll see how it works in terms of the points. But if Arsenal win, Matt and I will be level, and then it will just depend on what the score is. But I don't think we need to worry too much about the running totals in the league yet. There's a long way to go in our little prediction league, as there is in the real thing. All right then. Well, I think we'll leave it there then. We will be back next Monday with a review of the Leicester game, and it'd be nice to actually get into a real competitive match and see what the outcome is, and hopefully be celebrating 3 points. But we'll have to leave that to the players, and hope they can do the business. So until then, I will say thank you very much, Pete.
Thank you very much, Matt. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much from me to all of you for listening, and we will be back next week. Take care. Bye bye.